Mill-Airport Hilton International Hotel jina Freddy Felek natikom merħba u nistedinkom għal Focus Disej illum il-21 ta' April 1990. Dina ippreżentata mill-Maltese Canadian Federation. Insegwu parti minn dana l-event.
As you know, especially in our community, it's wonderful and encouraging. We hope we do many more of these in the future. I'll introduce our first host, Richard Kombu, who worked on the committee with a number of us in putting this event together today. When Richard is not busy working on the committee, he is acting coordinator for the Landlord-Tenant Education Program for the Ministry of Housing. And it will be Richard's pleasure this morning, and I'm sorry, I've just jumped ahead of the schedule. We're going to have opening remarks before Richard gets speaking by Frank Attard, President of the Maltese Canadian Federation, and many of you.
I would like to welcome you all for this Focus 90 seminar. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Maltese Canadian Federation Committee and the subcommittee who worked so hard during the past year to have this seminar. I would like to take the opportunity to thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. As I've been awake since 3 o'clock in the morning thinking of what I would tell you. I had prepared it and then suddenly I found that the people that spoke before me had already taken most of the speech. I apologize that one of the speakers couldn't make it. The reason is we had informed him for months and a half of the Olympic Committee. We did, even at the 11th hour, found a replacement, but either it's like a jinx, Dr. Schwere, Dennis Schwere.
And then by train to destination center. A few made it to Michigan, and then congregation to have their own planning fund was established. Through the voluntary labor and support of the Maltese Canadian Society and the contribution of many of the members of the Maltese community, the basement of the church was ready in 1930, enough to start having the religious function. The church was dedicated to St. Paul the Apostle, and the inauguration service was held on September 8, 1930, the feast of the Nativity of Our Lady, Presetented.
Thank you. Those are all lies. So I paid him quite well to say that about me. Thank you very much for having me speak here today. For me, it's a real honor. It's an honor for a number of reasons. But first, subsequent to our previous discussion, I would like to say that I'm very proud of being Maltese, and you'll have to excuse me for not speaking Maltese today, because I think if I did, you would disown me immediately. These points, which was that the media is very important, because about 2 years ago I was asked by someone who in fact was the person who labeled me the Maltese Maverick, how does being Maltese make me what I am? I didn't have an answer. I didn't have an answer not because it doesn't have an effect, but because I've never thought a lot about it. And over the last couple of years, I've actually made myself think about it. And what I've decided to talk about today is something which is my personal view of why being a Maltese has helped me do what I do.
Famous Maltese among us, those who make major contributions to the community. And they're, as we said, they're among us and we don't even know who they are. For example, Victor Portelli, who is one of the highest ranking officials in Metro Parks, aside from Mr. Bundy, is a former soccer star, I believe, from Malta. And he has a very high rank within the Metro government. Emily Zarb is a very popular clothing designer here in Toronto, whom I met recently, and I said, "You're Maltese, aren't you?" And she goes, "How did you know?" It was almost like she was very proud of it. She goes, very many people don't know that I'm Maltese when you hear reviews of her fashions, which are becoming quite well known internationally. No one talks about Maltese descent or whatever, and she's very proud of it because her father and her mother were very.
And how many Maltese are in Toronto? So I'm not going to even try and give you numbers because, as George said, it's very difficult to pin down numbers because there is no real scientific way for doing that. But let's just take a ballpark, and let's say 20,000, 40,000 living within the Toronto, Mississauga, and Brampton area. Well, when I take a look at that, and then I take a look at the membership roles of the different groups that are within the Federation of Maltese Canadians, then you really see that even though this federation represents the most unified voice of the community, at the same time when you compare it with the rest of the community, it's really a very small fraction. So I think that there has to be a way in which we can become more representative, if you will, of our community here in Canada. If I were to look for some conclusions, participation in Caravan each year, I would say also, maybe I believe every year, and even though it's not celebrated, I think at the same time that they celebrate Carnival traditionally just before Lent, I think though that it's an attempt to keep touch with some of the old traditions. The idea of Miss Malta, beauty contests, well, for some people they are important, for some people they might be a little bit in bad taste, but I think it's still an attempt to look for Maltese identity. So I think that maybe the way in which it's held could be reevaluated, but I don't think that we necessarily have to discount looking for young people within our community to represent us. I think that if we were to look for Maltese traditions and culture together, one of the most important things, and I think you're going to laugh when I say this, can you hear at the back? Do I have to use a microphone? No? Okay, good. That'll help me a bit. Steals my fire. I thought that I might be able to get some of that as a first line of defense, but it didn't really work. I'm going to use this a bit. And you see that at the back? No problem. Father Kushkiri goes up to the Yukon every summer and spends some time there. So you can find Maltese up in the Yukon as well. But if you take a look at things, starting over here from St. John's, if this works, yes, you already have the presence there of a consul general, an honorary consul general. And so it is that you can talk about Maltese who are out there. You can talk as well about Maltese War, although I suspect that we might have just a few left from the First World War. So you have that group there that I hope addresses some of the needs of seniors, especially veterans who are now in their senior years. We also have a program at the parish that's in its third year, I believe, and we have about a group of anywhere from 30 to 50 seniors who come out on a regular basis. They sometimes have people come and speak to them.
That's for in Canada. For Canada, well, ex-servicemen who were given priority, followed by those who had family members in Canada, or those who had lived in Canada before the war. Representations were made to the Canadian government for the entry of Maltese immigrants by the Malta Ex-Servicemen Association and by the Royal Canadian Legion through the initiative of its Maltese Canadian veterans. Also, the Malta government had talks with the Canadian government to open the doors for Maltese immigrants to Canada. In 1948, the first group of 500 immigrants from Malta were admitted as construction workers. The Canadian official announcement stated that this was in recognition of the outstanding service rendered by the people of Malta during the war, and to assist them in dealing with their reconstruction problem. While joining their family, we have seen quite a few Maltese immigrants returning back to live in Malta. An estimated number of people of Maltese origin in Canada is well over the 50,000 mark. Of course, this is a very conservative figure because if one has to take in consideration the number of children born in Canada of Maltese parents, together with those who intermarried, then the number of Maltese may well reach over the 100,000. As I have mentioned before, the largest Maltese Canadian community is in the Toronto area, estimated to be about 25,000, with a considerable concentration around London State. Serving the Maltese in North America was public for several years. The Maltese
Now, if you could do that for us, so those of you who are shy, you don't have to stand up and, say your piece. Sometimes we're a little too shy to do that in public. But in the meantime, we'll open up the floor now for questions to Mr. Bonavia.
Yes, sir.
I read your book and there's something disturbing there. Was there some
Immigrants coming to Canada, this was before we're talking about the 1913. Okay? The period is 1913 when I thought that the immigration was limited to say Anglo-Saxon period. They were the preferred class. Even the regulations itself said that. Now the regulations said they were from Britain, from Ireland, from Scotland, and they had to include France. And the others were restricted. Then in 1962, this restriction was taken over. It was based on your qualifications. That answer your question?
Well, there's a period in the early 50s, if I'm not mistaken, in your book that says something with regard to that.
Say it again?
In the early 50s, about 55, 56, I believe, in your book it says there's something that the Maltese were restricted because of the WASP movement at the time was restricting the Catholic movement into Canada. No, I have to look at it when I get home.
I don't know.
I'm sure there is.
I think about this George, about the same thing.
Communities in Canada. I know there are problems because of British passports, and obviously even the way the census is taken. Is there anything the Federation can do, or come up with a solution today, that we can do some lobbying with the government, especially the federal one, that a census of the Maltese community in Canada be taken? I don't know how it can be done, but I think that a family that doesn't know how big it is obviously cannot really cater for that family that it's, or the members of the family that make part of it.
What there is in the census that has been published, very few, because that depends who has answered the question of saying he is Maltese. And that before before we weren't even included as a group. It was others from Europe. So you can never pinpoint exactly the number of Maltese.
You stated that the Maltese made quite an impact in Canada. Could you summarize in what ways?
I think I said it in the speech. The thing was that we had a parish was well established. We had a Maltese organization which was established and was doing even place. And now, presently, we have our own Maltese teaching classes, teaching our Maltese language. And you have to consider this too, that we are a small group compared to the other big groups of Ukrainians, Italians, and so forth. So for us, we have a paper, television programs. For a small community, I think, I feel that that's something that comes. That's how I feel that there is an impact. And we're known. At least...
very well-known position. He didn't go into politics. And I was one of the first to start it years ago as an independent in the federal election in 1967. There's a band club. There's a full-blown band. You can look around you and you'll find them. We are very prominent now. We're in the forefront.
You want another question?
No, I need to finish saying how prominent we are. How many Maltese are involved in government lobbying?
If I could just interrupt you for a moment, we have to carry on the program, but our speakers will be with us for the rest of the day, and you can take on the city board. And I was born here, and I've always been very proud of being of Maltese descent.
My family is from Hungary too.
Well, there
Although I have That's why I was saying good. My grandfather was good from Hungary. You think he's talking to morning? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miss Alice Galia Kirkland. She is more well known outside of the Maltese community than she is within the Maltese community. although we're trying to bring her within the fold so she can do a little bit more work within the community. Her achievements are outstanding. She has been labeled by the Toronto print media as the Maltese member. She arrived in Canada when she was 2 years old, and she brought with her parents and the rest of the family. She made quite a good impression in Canada. Her first impression was the smell of pine, she tells me.
Association here in Canada. He's also been a practicing real estate broker, appraiser, and consultant since he came to Canada in 1953. Henry, thank you so much for being here with us. And at the conclusion of each speaker's segment, as I said earlier, you have an opportunity to give your questions in writing to Henry, and he will read them to the speakers on your behalf. If I can ask you to follow that protocol, we'd really appreciate it. Carrying on now, our next host and also member of the committee is Via Malia. And Via is a member of our committee and has been since its inception. She's a Maltese by choice. She wasn't born into the Maltese culture, but she did marry into it. She's also director of nursing at York Central Hospital when she's not busy working on committees and cooking up a storm of Maltese food. And Via will come forward and introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have the privilege of introducing the next speaker for today. I'm especially honored because, like many of you, I go back many years with Father Jimmy. We have watched him be an altar boy at St. Paul the Apostle Church to progress to become the associate pastor, the administrator, and the pastor of St. Paul the Apostle Church. He was raised in the Junction area of West Toronto, and he now serves the community in which he grew up. So I think we should be all very proud of him. Father Jimmy Samit has studied philosophy at St. Anthony's Friary in Gozo, Malta, and at the Immaculate Conception Seminary College in Troy, New York. He then went on to complete his baccalaureate at St. John's Seminary College in Brighton, Massachusetts in 1977. In 1978, Father Jimmy was called back to Malta, where he continued to study theology at INSERN, and maybe you'll tell us what those initials stand for. And after successful completion of his required courses, Father Jimmy was ordained to the priesthood on June 13, 1981. He's an invaluable resource person to the community and for the Maltese community. He has represented the community in both ecclesiastical and civic spheres. He is a regular contributor to the Maltese and the English print media, as well as being a frequent participant in community local television programming. His
Good morning, everyone. It really gives me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, George Bonavia. George has been involved with the Maltese community for over 40 years. Participated in the first Canadian Maltese seminar back in 1974. Excuse me. George is a journalist and broadcaster. He immigrated to Canada in 1950 or 1948, Ontario. He is a noted journalist and writer. Amongst his many books, there's, like you all mentioned, the Canada Artama Risk, Focus on Migration in Canada, and the very popular The Maltese in Canada.
Okay. You just go out this room, pass the salon, and hang a right. Any questions for Alice?
The girl, I think she has to be congratulated for the fine speech she made.
All right, lunch will carry through till 1:30, am I correct? Okay, we'll reconvene here at 1:30 for our next speaker. And if you wouldn't mind, please be thoughtful, we really appreciate it. That way we can carry on with the afternoon.
What you read.
Thank you.